Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the Nasdaq Market Site, we have Jay Heller, Head of Capital Markets at Nasdaq, as well as Peter Goldstein, IPO Expert and Summit 2025 founder. We're here to discuss the roadmap to a successful IPO in a challenging market environment. It is great to have the both of you with us. Jay, welcome back as always. Peter, it's interesting, we have Summit 2025 here today at Nasdaq. This is one of the most engaged audiences. There is definitely a lot of excitement in the room. Tell us more about the summit itself, and is that translating to how people are perceiving the IPO market?
Thanks, Jill. It's great to be here. The IPO Summit is designed for founders, leaders, and management teams of small cap and micro cap companies to be able to really get the knowledge, the market intelligence, and take the application to bring towards their companies if they're going to look to list here at Nasdaq.
Yeah, and it seems to be, well, there is a lot of buzz. You can probably almost hear it through our microphones here. Is that reflective of the pent-up demand in the IPO space, would you say?
I think it is, and these are the growth companies of tomorrow.
Right.
And they're hungry for access to capital and to enter the public markets. We have people that have come in from around the world, flown in from Dubai, from Hong Kong, from Singapore, from Malaysia, as well as throughout the United States and here in Canada. And it just shows you the pent-up demand and the interest from the small cap and micro cap community to want to go public.
Yeah, and Jay, I'm sure, you've been getting this question for a number of weeks. At this point, once we get more clarity in the operating environment, the pipeline, I'm sure, is ready to explode, if you will.
Well, pipeline's deep.
Yeah.
Right, and in times of good markets, or I don't want to say bad, but maybe a little bit of a pause, there's always the opportunity to kind of tell your story. And for an event like today, it's really an opportunity to educate, ask questions, and listen. There'll be ebbs and flows always, and there'll always be companies that are going to look to really tap into the capital markets. So again, pipeline is really deep and robust from a standpoint of all around the world, all sectors and sizes, and we're really excited about what's coming.
Yeah, think about with times that tend to be more volatile, all the innovation that comes out of it, because you have to learn how to manage operating environments such as this. Think about after the dot-com boom and the companies that evolved from there. Some of, many of them were the top 10 in the Nasdaq 100.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, there are ups and downs in the market, and there are going to be times, as you kind of referenced, 2008, we had the financial crisis. It's a fantastic time to see the innovators of tomorrow, as Peter said, tell your story, and when there's not the capital formation occurring, at least in the now, but you know it's coming, you can go out and again, tell your story, gather feedback, cultivate yourself to be, why am I going to be the next innovator for tomorrow, and ultimately get people to really understand who you are and where you're going.
Yeah, well, what are the, when it's quiet in the IPO market, it also gives the opportunity for younger management teams to be able to figure out what proper governance is, how they are able to build a consistent business and a strong balance sheet. So there is the silver lining to that. So when you're advising companies and how they should be thinking about their roadmap to have a successful IPO, what are some of the strategies you're discussing?
We break it down, Jill. We create a custom strategy, and we look at the quantitative components of listing as well as the qualitative. And we bring it all the way back from knowing what you meet to satisfy listing requirements to where they are today, and then begin to work on satisfying all those deficiencies. It's a big transition. It's a big journey to go from being a private company into all the pressures that come along with being public. And so through that, we're preparing them and educating them and giving them the knowledge so that they're ready, not just to meet the listing requirements, but to be a sustainable public company. Yeah,
especially if you're a founder, right?
Yes.
A founder and an operator or CEO, it's the ethos of who you are, right? So learning how to pivot from that perspective, I would imagine you hear about some challenges.
Yes, and I've done it myself,
right,
so
right.
I live it.
More than once.
Yes, and it creates the opportunity to shift your mindset. I like to say it's now like you're running two companies. You're running your operating company, and now you have the strategy and the needs and the requirements to satisfy as a public company. So you really have to learn how to shift your mindset to expand, and the decision making and the governance and all the requirements that come in now being in this new position. And that's why we like to take time right. for those founders, especially to move away from being entrepreneurial decision makers into working with structures of governance, structures of support in systems and in their thinking and the requirements really to satisfy their stakeholders.
Jay, do you ever have conversations with advisors of these companies where, you know what, you're not ready. You need another year, you need another few more months before you're ready to be a public company. Do those conversations take place as you're advising?
Look, for us at Nasdaq, we're regulated. And so ultimately, these are the rules in which you need to meet, and the regulations in which you need to meet to be qualified as a partner to be on Nasdaq. So we don't, from that standpoint, we don't pick the winners and the losers. Ultimately, what we do is we take the time to say, here's what the markets are looking to yield, here's what works, here is what not doesn't work. The biggest thing for me is always protect the house. So you have to surround yourself with the right advisors in times like today, that when you are ready to take that leap of faith, because the IPO is the leap of faith, remember, that you are ready to be prime time. So it is about the education standpoint, it is about surrounding yourself with the right advisors and telling them what we're seeing, what we're hearing, because remember, the markets are always going to be open. Right. Whether it's short term or long term, today, tomorrow, or 6 months in the line, it doesn't matter to us. We're going to be here to support you when the time is right, but you shouldn't rush to the altar. Right,
see, that's what's so interesting having these conversations with you, and why I'm selfish with your time, but it really is unique to have access to the person who literally opened your stock, and you deal with all the attorneys and all the advisors and the banks and so forth, so you truly have a bird's eye view. How many stocks have you opened?
Well,
thousands.
I've overseen 3,000, but again.
Who's counting?
Yeah, but I think from our side, it's really, we're providing you with the blueprint to work with your advisors on the legal, the auditing, the exchange side of the house, and we want to be that conduit, right? So we can never tell you exactly what to do or where to go, but we surely can be that sounding board, and we want to be not your client, we want to be your partner. So this is the journey, right? You take the journey to become public, and when you do flip the switch from private to public, there's a lot of responsibility. So that's why I always come back to protect your house with the right team, with the right advisors, so that when you're ready to go, you're going to be very successful in the future.
Right, so we don't just open the stock, we support them throughout, the life cycle.
Yeah, I mean, information is key, transparency is key, and it's more than just saying to the company, you have investors, right? If investors feel that they're not having true transparency, then they're going to lose confidence. So at Nasdaq, we have a very transparent market where we're looking out for the ecosystem as a whole to provide that unique platform with deep liquidity that sets everybody up for success.
Yeah, it certainly does. Peter, Jay had mentioned before that the diversity of sectors in the pipeline is really encouraging. Are you seeing that representative of the folks that are attending here today at Nasdaq?
We are. I think there's a broad diversity and broad geographic coverage. And a lot of foreign private issuers are interested in entering the market. There's a majority, 60 to 70% of the offerings in the small cap and micro cap are coming out of foreign companies. And they are in a diverse area. Of course, there's some concentration around technology, around life science. But in general, we're advising these companies to really look 12, 18, 24 months ahead. And because I agree with Jay that you have to protect the house. And no matter what industry you're in, it takes time to prepare to make that transition. And some of the market trends are coming where there are hot sectors, but still these are fundamentally sound companies that are looking to access that growth capital.
Yeah, which is so interesting because the pace at which technology is moving now. If you're a startup today, are you going to be relevant in 2, 3, 4 years down the line? I mean, even think about AI. Now we're talking about sub-verticals within the AI space, right?
Correct. And we advise also to make sure that if you're saying that you're an AI-based company, that you really have an AI application. Right. You're not just sprinkling some AI.
Like you're not putting blockchain on the back of your of your .com on the website over there.
And investors are looking for that, Jill. They want to know that there's real depth. And if you're bringing technology as a part of your business, and I think one of the great opportunities for those companies that are not AI oriented is to integrate AI into their business to enhance the way that they operate and their profitability.
Right, and investors have become more discerning, particularly what we saw in the early 2020s and that valuation reset that needed to occur. It can't just be an exit strategy for early investors. You have public investors that you want to ensure that there's trust within the broader capital markets as well.
Agreed, and I'd be curious to get Jay's perspective, but I think the market always sets the valuation. Companies and their underwriters have a responsibility to protect a range. And when the companies are in the pipeline, and they have an opportunity to really work on the fundamentals of their business. And ultimately, when you go to IPO, it is taking a leap, and there's a market that's going to set your price, right? Inside of how you have a range, but ultimately that range may not be met by the demand of the marketplace.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're trying to provide here, and I would say, global capital markets in general, particularly in the US, they want that transparency and they want to keep investors engaged in the public space.
And I think from the corporate side, you got to remember, how are you going to differentiate yourself from your competition? Technology is super important, but whether it's going to be a straight technology type of company, whether it's AI, whether it's in med tech or just straight biotech, you're looking for the innovators that are going to change the way that in which we live our lives for the betterment of all. And that in itself gives you a great opportunity today to take the time tell your story, gather the feedback, and then as you're paralleling your path against those that are maybe in your vertical, what's going to make you the bellwether and what's going to make you stand out? And I think in these times where you can come to an event like today, tell your story, gather feedback, maybe tweak your messaging a little bit, that's super important.
Yeah, I thought today's event was certainly valuable. Appreciate both of your insights. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.